Our own Rich Edson, Fox News reporter who has been working on this with the State Department as Michael White makes his way home. Rich, what can you tell us?
Good afternoon, Sandra. And State Department officials do confirm that Michael White is on his way from Tehran on a Swiss government flight. Michael White was arrested a couple of years ago in Iran. He was detained there. He was sentenced to about 10 years in prison for what Iranian officials claimed was insulting the supreme leader there. Now, as you mentioned, Brian Hook and the State Department, they have been going through the Swiss government for a number of these cases. The Swiss government is the intermediary between the United States and the Iranian government because, remember, there is no official relationship between the United States and Iran. So it's this long, drawn-out process where the U.S. and the Iranians have to talk to each other through the Swiss. And there has been this campaign, as the president has noted and as State Departments have publicly noted, to try to get all of the Americans who are detained in Iran freed from Iranian custody. Michael White is a U.S. Navy veteran. He apparently was in Iran visiting his girlfriend a couple of years ago when he was picked up there. And then a few months after that, in July of 2018, after he was arrested, in March of 2019, he was sentenced to that 10-year jail sentence there. According to officials, he has also been a cancer survivor. He has had COVID-19. And so this is a person who has been under extreme circumstances, not only the fact that he's been in an Iranian jail for a couple of years, but because of those circumstances as well. He had been under a medical leave, and that's an aspect here as well. The United States does try to get Americans first off out, but if they can't, to get them on leave from an Iranian prison. So this is an ongoing effort. We do know Michael White has left Tehran on a Swiss government flight and is potentially on his way to freedom. Sandra and Ed?
Rich, we'll hear from the White House in just a moment. They're coming up. Hogan Gidley, spokesperson for the White House, will be joining us. But if you could, what the State Department is saying right now as we await Michael White to return to American soil.
State Department isn't saying anything officially right now, Sandra. U.S. officials do confirm to us, though, that that plane is in the air. These are highly sensitive, highly coordinated events that happen whenever an American is freed from custody in Iran. The U.S. is not going to, or the State Department is very likely not going to comment until they have him in custody. And so we do know that he's in the air, but what would likely have to happen in a situation like that is that there would have to be a handoff from Swiss custody back to the United States to ensure that everything has gone through on both ends of the agreement. These negotiations take an awful lot of time. There are a lot of different circumstances that surround them. And so the State Department is never really going to say anything publicly until he is in U.S. custody, back on a U.S. plane, and headed back over the Atlantic Ocean.
And I wonder if you can answer what we just asked Daniel Hoffman, which is, what are State Department, I know it's early, but what are State Department officials saying about whether this maybe could open the door to a new round of talks, some sort of diplomatic opening? It's been pretty tense, obviously. You know better than us with Iran.
Yeah, officials say, and that's right, Ed, what they're looking for here is to begin a broader dialogue, and that's been part, according to administration officials, of their pressure campaign to try to exert pressure on Iran to bring them to the table. But officials also say that in discussions like this, when they're going through the Swiss and trying to get a negotiation ongoing about those who are detained in Iran, that they hope that it opens up into something even more than that, a conversation and a negotiation about not only the nuclear program, but Iran's ballistic missile launches, their activity with militias across the Middle East. That hasn't quite happened yet. The detractors from the Trump administration would say that the Trump administration's strategy on all this is making it less likely that Iran will talk. But at the very least, the U.S. has gotten Shiwei Wang freed, an American citizen, a Princeton graduate student. That was a few months ago. Michael White is the first American who was taken prisoner and detained during the Trump administration. The others who were there were taken during previous administrations. And so there is a real hope among officials who are telling us that they do hope that this begins a broader dialogue. But thus far, it really has been limited to trying to get Americans out. And it is this very delicate, uncertain dance of going through the Swiss, seeing who the Iranians might be willing to discuss what they want from the United States.
Rich, Reuters is just crossing a wire, noting that Iran is the worst hit country in the Mideast, as you know, when it comes to coronavirus. Talk about that factor in trying to get prisoners released. Are there more Americans in Iran, maybe even in other places around the world? I know that they're detained currently. We know that. But specifically, is coronavirus, how big of a factor is that in trying to get more Americans released?
It's been a major piece of the Trump administration's push. You've heard the Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, discuss this, publicly stating not only in Iran, but those who are held captive in Venezuela and around the world, those Americans who are, that because of coronavirus, and in particular in Iran, because it has been so bad in Iran, because coronavirus has been such an issue there, there's been a push not only to get Americans out of prison within Iran, but just to get them out of Iran. So that's been a point of negotiation from this administration, from the United States, try to get people out because of that concern. And again, Michael White was released on a medical furlough within Iran. Part of the case that the administration had been making is because of COVID and because of the effects there.